Anton Vanko watches the news about Tony Stark revealing that he is Iron Man. Anton is a former employee of Stark Industries, and he despises Howard and Tony for what he believes is rightfully his and his son's. He apologizes to his son, Ivan, in his last breaths, as Ivan mourns him. Consumed by his grief and anger towards Stark, Ivan looks for his father's blueprints and starts working on an arc reactor, similar to the one Tony Stark has, to keep him alive and power his suit. Back in his days working at Stark Industries, Anton Vanko had co-created the arc reactor with Howard Stark. For months, Ivan tracks Stark's every appearance in the media as he creates the reactor, until he successfully recreates a miniature version of it. By this time, Tony is having the time of his life, impressing people and hosting the Stark Expo. People adore him as he brags about the peace he brought about after he revealed his identity as Iron Man. He receives a letter from the Senate Armed Services Committee as he is leaving the venue. They want an audience with him tomorrow morning. Tony arrives in Washington, D.C., the next morning to attend to the letter from the committee. He is called for the Weaponized Suit Defense Program hearings. The U.S. government thinks that the Iron Man suit is a specialized weapon, and therefore, for the safety of the people, should be turned over to the government. Tony argues that it is not a weapon, for it is a part of him, with the arc reactor literally having physical functionalities for him to thrive. Senator Stren calls for James Rhodes to impart his report about the Iron Man suit to the public. He is an Air Force lieutenant in the U.S. government, and a dear friend to Tony. Tony is surprised to see him called to testify. However, the senator uses Rhodes' report against Tony by taking it out of context and making it seem as though the suit is in fact a danger to the people. Senator Stren then orders him to show the photos that indicate the immediate threat posed by others rebuilding a suit similar to Iron Man. Tony overrides their system and shows that all the attempts in copying the suit they mentioned all led to failure, and even exposes Justin Hammer, the Department of Defense's primary system contractor, replicating the suit secretly under the government. It is a clear win for Tony as the senator starts yelling profanities at him on his way out of the courtroom. Ivan is watching all of this take place on the news, all the way from Russia, as he completes his electrical whip weapon, powered by his arc reactor. Back at home, Tony has been monitoring his blood toxicity as he discovered that the palladium in his nuclear reactor is slowly becoming toxic for him. He and his AI, Jarvis, are figuring out how to fix the problem. Tony's continued use of the Iron Man suit is accelerating his condition. The palladium core in his arc reactor is running out, as he has been using the suit for longer and more frequently. Soon he will be out of replacements, as he has not yet discovered an element that can substitute for it. Pepper Potts, his assistant, arrives at his place, furious with him for the recklessness he has been exhibiting recently. She is concerned for his company and the strain she has been put through to maintain it. Tony suddenly decides to appoint her the new chairman and CEO of Stark Industries. Pepper is stunned by his decision and is not able to speak for a long time. She is delighted and decides to celebrate it with Tony. With Pepper as the new CEO, Tony hires Natasha Rushman as his new assistant. He is impressed not only by her diligence in handling the typical job according to his pace, but she is also capable of combat skills, and her credentials are all over the place. Tony, Pepper, and his new assistant Natasha go to Monaco for the Monaco Historic Grand Prix and to socialize with colleagues, business partners, competitors, and other important personnel. Tony secretly checks the status of his blood and sees that the toxicity level is already at 53%. At this rate, the end of his life is not far off. With this in mind, he decides to compete in the race for the event and replaces the Stark Industries representative. He wants to enjoy much more with the remaining time he has. As the race takes place, Ivan has flown all the way from Russia and disguises himself as a staff member for the race, already knowing that Tony Stark is in the race. Ivan crosses the barricade and enters the racetrack, whipping out his electric whip and attacking a race car speeding towards him. His whip cuts it clean in half and sends it tumbling off the track. Pepper watches all of this on the TV screen inside the main building. She and another Stark employee, Happy, ride out with the Iron Man suit onto the track to find Tony. Ivan manages to whip Tony's car, and being disoriented, Tony is not able to react fast enough. This accident causes a series of collisions, putting the audience and staff members into disarray. Tony gets out of his smashed car before Ivan whips it more. Tony hits him from behind with a metal part lying around, but Ivan recovers quickly and starts flogging him continuously. Tony evades his electrical whip several times and lures him into a damaged car leaking gas. Ivan whips at him, and at the last moment, Tony jumps out of the way, making his whip connect with the car, causing a huge explosion. Pepper and Happy arrive and crash into Ivan with the car. Pepper is furious at Tony and orders him to get in the car and get out of there. However, Ivan is still alive and starts shredding their car. Tony gets a hold of his suitcase and puts on the Iron Man suit. He fights with Ivan and is surprised by how much damage the whips are inflicting on his suit, considering that his technology is far beyond any other. Ivan manages to take the upper hand with surprise on his side, but soon enough, Tony overpowers him and removes the arc reactor that powers the whips. He is bewildered by how Ivan got his hands on an arc reactor similar to his. The authorities arrive and take Ivan away. Justin has seen all of this through the TV at the main building and is immediately interested in Ivan's technology. Tony cooperates with the authorities to get a chance to talk to Ivan. He confronts him about the device he created and why, instead of just making a profit from it, he used it the way he did. Ivan accuses him that he is from a family of thieves and ill-willed people that ruin other people's lives. He makes sure Tony knows that he got the blueprint from his father and that he knows about Tony's issue about the palladium slowly poisoning. As Tony and Pepper make their way back to the US, Justin sets up a prison break for Ivan. He was impressed by what Ivan did in Monaco against Tony and offers Ivan to work with him on the technology he created. Ivan decides to cooperate, and the two of them reach a deal. Tony discovers Anton Vanko's history as a Soviet physicist who got deported after his betrayal of the US. Rhodes arrives, frustrated about how he had been dealing with the National Guard to prevent them from confiscating the Iron Man suits. His frustration immediately fades away and is replaced with concern when he notices Tony looking all weak. Tony asks for his help in replacing the palladium in his arc reactor, and Rhodes knows right away that something is wrong with him. Accepting that his time is almost up, Tony is having a blast at what potentially is his last birthday party. Pepper and Rhodes try getting control over his escalating erratic behavior, but being clouded with frustration and alcohol, his behavior is becoming worse and worse. Rhodes takes an Iron Man suit from Tony's collection and sends everybody out to stop Tony. Tony still keeps going, and the two of them fight in the Iron Man suits. He loses his temper and scares off his party guests. Their fight ends in a draw, with them shooting blasts at each other. Rhodes realizes that Tony is not stable anymore to maintain his and the country's safety. He leaves him, taking the Iron Man suit with him, and brings it to the Air Force Base in California. Nick Fury, the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., meets with Tony the next day. Tony is surprised to know that his new assistant is actually a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, and her real name is Natasha Romanoff. Nick confronts him, claiming that he is a problem for them, and that they know that he is facing a problem on his own. Tony assures him that he has been doing everything to find a replacement for the palladium that is both keeping him alive and slowly destroying him. Nick tells him that his father initially planned to use the arc reactor for something bigger. Anton Vanko worked with him in creating it, but when he became greedy, Howard Stark got rid of him. Nick reveals that his father was one of the founding members of S.H.I.E.L.D. and leaves him his father's belongings kept by S.H.I.E.L.D. Meanwhile, Justin goes to the Air Force Base and meets with Rhodes. He is delighted to see the dismantled Iron Man suit in their possession, but before he can get his hands on it, Rhodes quickly turns it down to business. Justin starts to present his new creations for the military, and Rhodes takes them in for the US military. Tony starts inspecting his father's trunk and sees the blueprint of the arc reactor. He gets a hold of his father's recordings and journal notes. One of the recordings directly addresses him, saying that Tony is capable of changing the world, and he is his father's greatest creation. He goes to the Stark Industries headquarters to try and talk to Pepper, but she is still frustrated with everything that he did. He brings the huge diorama of the 1974 Stark Expo, created by his father, back home to inspect it. He makes a 3D projection of it and starts dissecting it. He discovers, hidden in the facade, a structure of a new element his father had hidden that he could use to replace palladium. Tony immediately gets to work. He tears up his house to use the materials in building a new mechanism that will help him synthesize the new element his father discovered 20 years ago. He activates the machine and successfully creates the new element he needs. He tests its compatibility as the new core for his arc reactor. Meanwhile, Justin is encountering a problem with Ivan's progress. It is too slow for him, but what he does not know is that Ivan is also working for himself, using the materials that Justin is providing him with to create a new weapon. He confronts Ivan with his frustrations and threatens that he will end his life if he does not cooperate. Ivan beats up security after Justin leaves and contacts Tony, telling him that he took him up on his mock advice back when he was in the hands of the Monaco authorities. Tony immediately orders Jarvis to track Ivan's coordinates. Ivan continues talking, saying that he will do to him what the Starks did to his family, before ending the call. Tony unhesitantly puts on the new core into his chest before even running tests on it, and it instantly revitalizes him. Meanwhile, Justin's event is taking place that night. Justin takes up the main stage and introduces the hammer drones that Ivan has created. These are robots designed to provide firepower, like the Iron Man suit, but without the need for a wearer. Ivan remains hidden as he accesses the controls of these hammer drones. Justin introduces Rhodes as the man who will take control of these drones as a part of the Air Force. Rhodes appears in the modified Iron Man suit he took from Tony. Tony arrives on the stage and tells Rhodes that Justin has been working with Ivan. He discovered that Ivan will wreak havoc, and all the people in there are in grave danger. At first, Rhodes is confused, but at that moment Ivan takes control of all the hammer drones, as well as the suit Rhodes is in, and starts shooting at Tony. Tony flies off to make the drones pursue him to bring them away from the people. Rhodes tries to help him by telling him his override vision report. Several Hammer drones remain on the ground and start attacking everything in their path. Natalie gets a hold of Justin and finds out about Ivan and his location. Meanwhile, Pepper alerts the police department about the crisis. Natalie and Happy head for Hammer Industries to catch Ivan. The drones on land bomb the outskirts of the main building, bringing the people more chaos. Ivan sets their attack to lock projectiles at Tony, but instead, it ends up hitting other Hammer drones. Tony manages to evade and take down a few more drones one by one. Meanwhile, Natalie and Happy reach the Hammer Industries building and take down security. Ivan sees this through the CCTV cameras and decides to deploy all the remaining drones before taking off. Tony outflies the drones pursuing him, causing them to collide and explode. Natalie reboots Rhodes' suit, and he is able to take back control. Natalie informs Tony that more drones are coming to his location. More than a dozen drones appear and immediately start exchanging fire with Tony and Rhodes. Tony puts an end to it by frying all the drones with his lasers. Justin gets arrested by the authorities. Natalie informs Tony that there is another drone coming to their location, but this time it is a battle suit worn by Ivan. He whips out his newly improved electrical whips and takes on Tony and Rhodes at the same time. His suit is as impenetrable as the Iron Man suit, and the two are having a hard time defeating him. Tony eventually has the idea of causing an explosion with both of their beams colliding. After everything settles down for a while, Nick Fury recruits Tony as a consultant for the Avengers, and Tony agrees. In a post-credit scene, a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent discovers a mysterious hammer in the middle of a barren desert.